Welcome to our webinar on the Masters in Community Development. Glad you could join us today. I'm joined today by my colleague, Robin Husledge. Robin will be monitoring the call, taking any questions. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section or in the chat and we'll get to them. And also we'll be joined by our recent graduate of the program, Jyothi Narayan, who's joining us, and I will interview her later in the interview. My name is Michael Swack. I'm the director of the Master's Program in Community Development here at the Carsey School at the University of New Hampshire. I also run our Center on Impact Finance, which does work on community development finance throughout the country and beyond. So we're glad you could join us today. And I want to start by talking a little bit just about Carsey's academic programs. The Carsey School of Public Policy at UNH has 3 academic programs. This master's program in community development is one of the programs. We also have a Master of Public Administration, an MPA, which is an entirely online degree, and a Master in Public Policy degree, which is an in-person degree, a 1-year degree in public policy. So we have those 3 academic programs and also a number of centers and researchers who do work on public policy in New Hampshire, US, and beyond. The Masters in Community Development is a unique program in a sense. It's been around in some form or another for over 35 years now. It's been at UNH for the last 10 years. And currently it's an online program that uses a cohort model. What the cohort model means is that you go through the program with the same group of students. Basically you start, you take your required courses together and you go through a series of project courses together. And what the cohort model allows is it allows you to build connections, friendships, professional relations as well, because you get to know a relatively small group of people pretty well. The cohort model itself is generally comprised of between 15 and 20 students in the program, and these are people you'll get to know quite well. Earlier in the program, several years ago, prior to COVID, it was a short-term residency program, meaning that you started the program by coming on campus 2 weeks in the summer. Because of COVID, we converted to a fully online model, although as you'll see, we were primarily online even before that. I want to talk a little bit today about the courses, the capstone project, which is central to the program itself, a series of 4 courses I'll get to in a minute. And then there's a set of interdisciplinary practice-oriented courses. That is, what do people in community development, what are the types of skills they need to develop and hone? And so you take a series of courses in management and financial management, public policy, community economic development. And the idea is to build skills to become a more effective practitioner. Going into the curriculum in a little bit more depth, there are a series of core courses. Again, you go through as part of a cohort that everybody takes together. And in taking these core courses, I should mention that the program has the courses are both synchronous and asynchronous. What that means is much of the work is done offline, although with study groups, you're organized into groups in the various classes. So you work in small groups in between classes. But in addition to that asynchronous work that you do on your own schedule, each course schedules a Zoom session of between 60 to 90 minutes, typically once or twice a week. Once a week or once every 2 weeks. So you do actually get to see people in person, work with those people in small groups, in addition to the work that you do on your own. So for these core courses, you see a list of 5 of the required core courses that everybody takes. The Integrative Approaches to Development is an introductory course that I teach with my colleague, Lee Farrow. It's the one course that actually asks you to think about and develop your own theory, your own theory of practice. How does theory inform the work that you do as a community development practitioner? You also take courses in policy analysis, economic analysis for development, and then organizational and financial management, two key practical skills that most practitioners need and use. So I mentioned earlier, the core part of the program is this experiential learning, where you take 4 project courses in sequence over a period of 4 terms, and you actually develop a project in your community. More about that in just a minute. And then we have a series of electives. You can see listed there some of them, but a number of electives. And these electives are open not just to community development students, but you'll also frequently run into students from Carsey's other programs and occasionally people from other graduate programs at UNH. So let's talk a little bit about the project, since that is core to it. And Jyothi, I'll be asking you about your project as well when we get to that. The capstone project is broken into 4 segments. The introduction, and that's when you come into the program. That first term is when you'll be introduced to the project sequence, this logic model, which I'll show in a minute. And then a series of courses after that in term 2, design, project design, then project implementation, and finally project evaluation. Now, a lot of questions often come up around the project itself. One of them is, do I have to have a project before I come to the program? And the answer is no, most people don't. The idea of a project is to carry out something typically in your community, although it doesn't need to be, often in your workplace. That is, it's fine to carry out work, a project that's part of your work. In fact, people in your organization often like that. But most people don't know in advance what their project is going to be. And that first term gives you the opportunity to think about, do I want to do a project affiliated with my work? Is there an area that I really want to learn that I can focus my project in? So a project can be anything from starting a new program. A lot of people do that in their workplace. It could be developing a training module for something you could do. It could be performing an evaluation of a project that you've worked with or one that you're interested in. There's really a lot of flexibility in terms of what the project is. So that first term is an introduction to the project in which you'll develop look at some of the tools and skills you'll need to carry out the project. So that first term is identifying your project and then moving into the project design phase, where you'll develop surveys and interviews, focus groups, essentially data collection around your project before you get into the implementation section. So you will develop a logic model, and some of you may be familiar with the logic model. The idea, it's a format of essentially identifying the input, activities, outputs, and outcomes. Again, it's a format that helps you think about, in a logical framework, how to develop a project, what you'll need to do to implement that project, what you're trying to measure in terms of outputs, and ultimately what you're trying to measure in terms of outcomes. So this is a process you'll go through as part of the 4-course sequence in carrying out the project. Outcomes and impacts, ultimately this is the project evaluation. Your 4th project course in the program looks at outcomes, measurements, evaluation, how you know that the project has succeeded. The most important thing about doing any sort of project is looking at its outcomes, and that answers the question of how are people better off. So again, this 4-course sequence, key to the program, really central to the program curriculum, and other elements of the curriculum supplement this. So if you have to develop budgets, you're also taking a financial management course that looks at budgets and financial statements and that analysis of those statements. Robin, let me stop for a minute and see if there are questions that people have before I move on to some of the requirements of application.
Thank you, Michael. There is a question. Can you provide more examples of the types of capstone projects students do?
Yeah, I'm going to go over that in a minute. I have another slide that looks at that, but again, projects are really varied. There are projects we've had of everything from beginning to develop an affordable housing project. There are people who've done projects to implement micro lending. There have been projects related to public health and developing an education and outreach program around public health in the community. So really pretty wide ranging, anything housing, business development, community organizing projects we've had. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the project. We really want you to choose something that is of interest to you and allow you to develop and build skills in that particular area. And again, we'll ask Jyothi about hers as well.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions for now, Mike.
Okay. So the program overall, a 36 credit program. We went over some of the courses, the 9 core and experiential courses, the courses being the required ones, the experiential being the 4 project courses, and then 3 electives where there's a wide variety of electives to choose from. Again, a wide variety of online electives to choose from. So everything from negotiation strategies to public health courses, to community development finance, to housing courses, a wide range of electives. Again, I'd say the program is career focused. It's focused on what are the kinds of skills necessary to enhance your ability to be a practitioner, a good practitioner of community development. We have a really strong faculty. Almost all of them are practitioners. We have strong advisory services, faculty and staff who will work with you on courses, on professional networking, on jobs. And we like to stay in touch after you graduate in terms of sharing information. We have a regular monthly newsletter that goes out to alumni, which also mentions jobs that are available at the time. So again, this is the requirements of the course and the fact that it's career focused. Again, you generally take 2 courses per E-term. What's an E-term? An E-term is how UNH defines an 8-week period of time for a course that's taken online. So you take a series of 8-week courses over time, and what you see on your screen right now is a basic outline of the types of courses you might take. It fills in all the required courses, some of the electives, and as you see, if you take it over a period of time, you can start one fall and finish the end of the other. We typically encourage people to start in the fall term, although fall in New Hampshire, at least according to the E-terms, begins at the end of August. And you can complete the course in 14 months. Although I should mention, it's certainly not required and many people take longer. That is, some people, given the number of other responsibilities they have, family responsibilities, child care responsibilities, responsibilities that relate to your work. Some students choose to take 1 course at a time and spread it out over 2 years. So there's, again, flexibility in terms of when you take your courses and how many courses you take at any one time. But they're spread out over these series of 8-week E-courses that go from the fall, spring, a summer session, which is actually a somewhat shorter session, an E-term of just 5 weeks in the summer, and then back to a final fall session the following year. So that's what the basic schedule looks like, but again, flexibility. Application requirements, you can see online here. For the fall term, which is when most people start, we start a brand new cohort then. Application deadline is July 15th, although we encourage people to get their applications in earlier. We do have some people who will start the program before the fall cohort because they want to try it by taking a course. You can apply and start the program in the January E-term and for example, take a course in financial management to get started. The application will need your transcript from your bachelor's degree, 3 letters of reference, a personal statement in which we ask you to talk a little bit about why you want to take this program, a resume, and a $65 application fee. We do not require the GRE. Basically, we learned it doesn't tell us much about whether a person will succeed in the program. And the TOEFL we do require for international applicants if you didn't study your bachelor's degree in English. If your bachelor's degree was in English, the TOEFL is not required for international applicants. Cost, you see the cost on the screen. That's for the whole program. So that's calculated essentially by looking at the per credit cost. And if you look at the 36 credits, it's again spread out based on when you take the course. But that's what you would expect to pay for the tuition throughout the program. We do offer financial assistance through the Carsey School, need-based scholarships and fellowships. So you would apply for scholarship assistance around the same time that you apply for the program, or just after you would get accepted to the program. And assistance we offer includes both grants and access to student loans. In addition, if you're work for any of the programs listed here, LISC, Opportunity Finance Network, NeighborWorks, Peace Corps, City Year, there are additional scholarship funds that are provided by your organization, which we match. So those are more substantial scholarships for students that apply from those organizations. So let me stop there for just a minute. Any other questions, Robin, that we should get to?
Hi, Michael. Yes, let's see. Oh, good question. During the online courses, are there live online sessions, or is it all self-paced learning?
Yeah, so that it's some of both. All of the courses do have Zoom meetings with the full cohort group, again, generally about 15 to 20 or so people online, and that time is used in both small groups and a larger group. And typically each course will have roughly, there's some variation in courses. Some meet online every week for about 60 minutes. Most meet online every other week during the 8-week term. So that would be 4 or so face-to-face meetings, and those are for roughly 90 minutes each. The rest is self-paced. Each course does have a series of assignments that are due at specific times during that e-term. You get a lot of feedback on your assignments from the instructors as well. So it is a combination of self-paced and weekly or bi-weekly meetings via Zoom.
Thank you, Michael. Another question, do most students start the program in the fall or in the spring or even summer?
Yeah, you can start anytime. We encourage people to start in the fall because that's when we generally have, that's when we begin a cohort. We have an introductory course, then the project sequence begins in the fall. Like I said earlier, people sometimes will take an elective course or even one of the required courses. We've had people, for example, who want to get financial management out of the way, and so they'll get accepted to the program. They'll take that in January, and then they'll start the cohort, the class with the rest of their cohort in the end of August.
Great. And a final question for you, Michael, is does Carsey award many scholarships to students?
Yeah, I would say that, Robin, you probably know the answer to this question better than I do, but I'd say, you know, most students, well, I think almost all students who actually apply for financial aid get some sort of financial aid. Meaning grant money from Carsey. There is quite a difference, again, depending on financial need. Those with greater financial need get greater grant support from Carsey. But almost everyone who does apply for financial aid will get some sort of support from Carsey, in addition to access to student loans.
Yeah, I would say that's very true. Thank you, Michael. That's all the questions I see here now. Thanks.
Okay, and then just back to the what do people do afterwards? This is just three recent graduates of the program and some of the work they're doing and how they're spread out. And Andronique, I should mention, who's Executive Director of Housing New Orleans. Actually, we hired her this past term, just a year after she graduated, to teach a housing elective that we offer. So we frequently hire our alumni who are qualified to teach. Andronique is a great example of that. And again, you can see a wide range of careers that people are in or go into after they finish the program. So with that, I would like to introduce a recent alum, Jyothi Narayan. Jyothi, welcome. It's great to have you here. Jyothi had a pretty distinguished career even before she started the program, and important because actually one of the things I didn't mention earlier is that there's incredible diversity in the program of all kinds. So when I say diversity, we have people who are pretty young, in their mid-20s. We also have had people in their 60s, a wide range of people all throughout. We have people from all over the country. We have international students in any given cohort. We have people who are diverse in terms of ethnic and racial diversity. So it's a very diverse class in all, and you think of all the different variations of what that might mean. So Jyothi, let me start by asking you to tell us just a little bit about yourself, what you were doing and before you started the program, and maybe how you learned about the program. So you're still on mute, Jyothi, so why don't you unmute yourself and start again? There you go.
Sorry about that. Thanks for having me on. It's great to see everybody. I've been missing seeing and participating with everybody after school. So my community development interest began during my career as a CPA. So I've worked almost 25 years as a CPA, and my specialization as an external auditor and a CPA was community financial institutions, not necessarily CDFIs, but community financial institutions in general. And along the way, because of that specialization, I started to do work on audits of CDFIs, because they are community financial institutions, except a different kind of community financial institution. And working on the audit teams for CDFIs gave me an opportunity to look at community financial institutions through a different lens, because they're primarily, even though there are some regulated not for-profit CDFIs, the vast majority of them are not-for-profit CDFIs that are structured differently and do raise money in a different way than traditional banks do, and they channel that money to an entirely different with an entirely different objective, basically mission-based lending, because they're looking to serve underserved communities and underbanked communities. And
so how did that work then get you to this kind of program? How did that happen?
So
I mean, it's certainly community development related, but.
Right. And so my interest in CDFIs grew and grew and grew as I worked my way through my career. And I got to a point in my career where I was working hard and doing really well, but I felt like I was not making, my efforts was not making a personal impact on any community or individual. And I wanted to be able to also learn more about community development in general, because as an auditor, you're at 30,000 feet looking in. Mm-hmm. You're an outsider looking in, and you're looking at a very narrow focus on as to financial statements. So when I heard about the Carsey School and listened in to one of your information webinars, I connected with Robin. She invited me to campus, and I had the opportunity in the summer of 2019 to listen to the live presentations of the capstone courses of the graduating class. And that was another hook that drew me into the program, the opportunity to actually get my hands dirty with a community development project.
Yeah. So tell us about your project. What was it?
So my project is actually a little bit, provides more diversity to the descriptions that you provided earlier. So for a long time, even before I came to the Carsey School for the program, I have been wanting as an Indian to develop a support group for divorced Indian women. Now, divorce is something that's pretty commonplace in the Western world, and the idea of a support group for divorced Indian women might sound a little surprising, but you have to remember that from a cultural aspect, and not just within the Indian culture, but there are lots of ethnic cultures where divorce is taboo. It's a difficult topic, and the women especially are burdened, extraordinarily burdened, not just by the trauma of the divorce itself, but the shame and the stigma that goes along with it. They get isolated from the community. They suffer serious emotional and mental health issues. They need help to move forward within their communities and basically to become self-sufficient and lead happy lives. They need to understand that their lives don't end with their divorces.
So what was your project? How did you address this issue?
So I had this idea in my mind, and when I came to the program and in the project's introduction course, we were asked to float our ideas for a potential project. And when I floated the idea of wanting to develop a virtual support group for divorced Indian women, the professors accepted it. They said, it's definitely a community development project, run with it. So unknowingly, the Carsey School gave me an opportunity to make a dream come true, because it's been an idea I've harbored for a long time.
What were you able to accomplish over the course of the program and since? Well, since is only a month or so since you graduated. So what were you able to accomplish during that time in your project?
So I was very fortunate, and as part of the project, of course, we are required, all of us are required to partner with a not-for-profit organization that we can work with. And in my situation, since I'm no longer employed, I actually had to go out and look for a not-for-profit organization. Many of my fellow students actually develop projects within their employers, because many of them were working with not-for-profit organizations. And I was very fortunate to be able to connect with a not-for-profit organization in New Jersey that specifically caters to the South Asian community. And when I approached the executive director with my idea, they took it on.
Screen frozen briefly. Hopefully Jyothi will be joining us. Hi, your screen froze briefly, Jyothi. So
okay. So I was very fortunate to connect with a not-for-profit organization in New Jersey that caters to the South Asian community in all different aspects of difficult topics and situations, such as divorce, suicide, substance abuse. These are all topics that affect people in their daily lives, but nobody reaches out because of the shame and the stigma associated with all of this. And the executive director was very welcoming and took me on.
So, but you, I mean, I'm asking the question, but I actually saw your final report. So in a sense, I'm asking a question where I know the answer, right? But I wonder if you could, just briefly say where it stands now.
So the culmination of my project work was actually the launch of a divorce women's support group. We started that in July, and the intention was to start it with one support group meeting a month, but there was so much demand, if you will, or interest in a support group that beginning in August, we are having these the first and the third Tuesday of every month. We had one, the first one yesterday night, as a matter of fact, for the first Tuesday of October. And the number of people that join us varies from meeting to meeting, certainly, but it's very gratifying to see that there are people joining us from all over the country. And really
great,
happy
yeah.
to find the group.
So your project was very practical and had a positive impact right away. Let me switch directions, or we just have a few minutes left. Jyothi, I mentioned that this is a cohort program. Can you tell us a little bit about your cohort and how that worked?
So COVID kind of threw a wrench in the works, because one of the things that had attracted me also about the Carsey program was the ability to spend 2 weeks on campus and interact with the faculty and the cohort and get to know one another better. And hopefully that's something that can be implemented again, because I think that would be a valuable part of the program. But even so, as you mentioned, the cohort is very diverse, not just as to age and gender and geographic location, but also in what they do and the backgrounds that they bring. So not only was I able to connect with the cohort, and it's a learning experience to be able to interact with the cohort. And not only was I able to learn and connect with them through the class discussions, but some of us actually took the opportunity and did virtual happy hours, if you will, and just to be able to connect separately. And I was able to do that with my classmates from different parts of the country and learn about them in a non-academic setting, and to learn about them and their lives and their jobs and what they do, their difficulties. So I was able to, even with the limitations of Zoom and being virtual, I was able to connect with several of my classmates. And now I have people that I can reach out to for whatever reason.
Right. Great. Well, Jyothi, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Getting the perspective of an alum is probably the most important part of this sort of thing, of this sort of webinars. People get a sense of, well, who goes to the program and what do they do? So I really appreciate your taking the time to join us today. Thanks for joining. I'm going to switch back to the
experience.
Thanks. I'm going to switch back to the screen for just a second, and also go back up so people can see for a last time how to contact us if they want to. You have on the screen here my email address. You also have the email address of Sanjeev Sharma, who handles our admissions, and Robin, who joined us on this call as well. So I'd encourage you, if you have additional questions, to contact any one of us, and encourage you to apply for the program if you're thinking of it. We encourage people to apply early, particularly with respect to financial aid. And Robin, before we sign off, let me just see if there were any last questions before we sign off for the session.
Michael, yes, there have been a few questions for Jyothi. One of the questions is, how challenging was it for you to return to school?
Well, I tested the waters, and that's yet another part of the program that was very attractive to me, the flexibility. So I wasn't sure that I would be able to get through a whole master's program after 32 years of a lag from school. So the Carsey School actually allows you to take up to 6 credits or 2 courses on a continuing ed basis. And what that means is that you sign up for the course, you take it, but you haven't committed to the program yet. And I did that. I took 1 course in the fall semester of 2019 and 1 course in the spring semester of 2019. And it gave me the comfort and the confidence that I was going to be able to do this. And the other best thing is that the credits transfer to the program. So it's almost as if you joined the program from day 1, except you haven't made a commitment to it.
Great.
So
Thank you.
that was great.
That's awesome. And another question was, what was your favorite aspect of the program?
Personally, it was the exposure to this vast base of knowledge, because for almost 30 years I had been immersed in the world of accounting and auditing, and it was like I was living in a vacuum. So this was an opportunity to learn about what happens in the real world beyond accounting and auditing. And what I learned through the 2 years is totally immeasurable. I can't describe that.
Great. And for me personally, when I went through the program, it was getting to know all of these people all over the world, and which really enriched my experience. So I really enjoyed that part as well. Well, that's all the questions I see, Jyothi, for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks again, Jyothi, for joining us. And if there are no other questions, that completes the presentation for today. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Right.
Okay. Bye, everybody.